Yo guys, Merry Christmas to any of you guys who celebrate it. I hope you're having a cracking holiday at the moment, and to any of you who don't, hopefully you're enjoying a few days off school or work, gaming, eating, and just generally relaxing. I know I am. So Venice Unleashed, the modding platform for Battlefield 3, has been out for a few days now, and with each day that goes by, we've been seeing more and more mods making their way onto the platform as the initial jitters of the big launch begin to subside. So today, I thought I would detail some of my favourite mods that I've discovered so far, and recommend for you guys which ones you should be on the lookout for if you really want to experience what Venice Unleashed has to offer. If you want to know how you can get your hands on Venice Unleashed, I recently made a video about that with an installation guide that goes through everything, so feel free to check that out. Before we jump in, be sure to go check out our live stream over at twitch.tv/ghostgaminggg. I stream a few times a week over there playing Battlefield and other games, and it's always a pleasure playing a few rounds with you guys over there, so feel free to drop by. So the server browser for VU is honestly pretty nice and polished, but one of the biggest problems with it is that it displays very little information about the servers themselves and just which mods are actually running on them. Right now, the only thing server creators can use to indicate what sort of a server they've made is by adding tags. So without further ado, let's get into it. Okay, the first server is the 84-player core Conquest server from The Last Rifles. Yes, you heard me correctly, there is now a server available with 84 players, 42 on each team. There are also some other small mods running here that I would say are pretty much standard now in most of the Venice Unleashed servers, like the Compass, blue tint reduction, the new 60Hz tick rate, and the removal of most, if not all, of these suppressive effects. But without a shadow of a doubt, the star mod of this server is simply the fact that it has an increased player size, which is interesting because chances are the next Battlefield is going to feature far more than 64 players as well, probably 128 in fact. So even though Battlefield 3's maps were designed with 64 players in mind, nevertheless, we can still sample a little taste of that here. Now, as far as I know, this server is running all of the DLCs with a vote map system in place, and my word, is it refreshing to cycle through all of the DLC maps with an absolutely brimful server, plus people in the queue. I mean, here in the background I'm flying around on Nabandan Flats. I haven't played this map in years, but somehow this server has managed to bring back that nostalgic feeling of how it felt when Battlefield 3 originally came out, and there were, a ton of servers available with any map and game mode you could imagine just waiting to be played. It sort of feels quite magical and surreal, really. Now, do bear in mind that all of Battlefield 3's maps have not been designed with 84 players in mind. Here we are on Metro. This map allowed for tons of explosive spam and pretty much resulted in a standoff between the B and C flag every single match, with the classic choke points being both sets of escalators as well as the side staircase leading up around the side of the map. So as you can imagine, the addition of 20 more players into the mix hasn't exactly helped with those issues. The explosive spam is greater than ever, and I really think they need to configure some of the server options to limit the number of explosives here. Okay, next we have the night map server. This one's pretty much self-explanatory. It's pretty similar to the 84-player server I mentioned earlier, only with night versions of every map, and I think you'll agree they look pretty cool. I've always loved night maps. I thought the ones that DICE released for Battlefield 4 were a welcome distraction, and they looked and played really well. In fact, I was gutted that they didn't release the night version of Siege of Shanghai. They gave you an excuse to use optics with IR vision, and you just had to rethink the way you played a little bit. So I think here the creator is trying to mimic that. Now, the reason I mentioned the 84-player server first in this video is because, at its core, it's just regular old Battlefield, and most of the mods on there are only improvements to the game, and they don't really take anything away. Now, these night maps are pretty cool looking, but gameplay-wise, I'm gonna have to be honest, it was a bit of a mixed bag. There were times when playing on Sen Crossing, even whilst using an IR scope, that I just couldn't see the enemy unless they were spotted, and it definitely encouraged people to camp way more than usual, which I generally consider to be a negative thing. Here on Cog Island, I'm flying around in the jet, engaged in a heated dogfight against two talented pilots. But the jet's hood is just so bright here against the night backdrop that it's almost blinding me on my massive 32-inch monitor. Granted, that might be more of a me problem than a server problem, but it didn't really help either that I just simply couldn't see the jets. Unless they were spotted in front of me, it was incredibly hard to line up a shot on them. But obviously, the reason I've included this server on the list is because I see the potential in it. There were moments of awesomeness where the nighttime atmosphere on the map shone through. Like me flying around here with the scout heli. The miniguns almost look like tracer rounds, and it just kind of makes you feel more badass somehow. Okay, next up we have dirt bike racing. I absolutely love this mod. Some genius decided to turn the maps of Battlefield 3 into dirt bike tracks and used a fire animation to signal where the checkpoints are. As you can see, there's also a new UI element here on the left of the screen to indicate your position and checkpoints completed. It isn't native to the Battlefield 3 UI, but don't worry if you don't have that installed. The first time you join the server, Venice Unleashed will automatically download it for you. So what's cool about this mod is that I never actually realised the dirt bike mechanics could be so much fun. I mean, they're not exactly pro motocross or anything like that, you know, when compared to a proper racing game, of course. But you've got a speed boost by holding down shift and lifting up your front wheel, and then you can perform a sharp turn by hitting S and A or D respectively. But, you know, all in all, it's just a welcome distraction from the base game that is Battlefield, which is a fairly taxing game to play. It requires a high amount of concentration to do well. It can get sweaty at times when, you know, the shotgun slugs start coming out. I know you guys know what I'm talking about. But hopping into a round or two of dirt bike racing can be the perfect way just to wind down a little bit. And of course it means you get a chance to use the dirt bikes on a lot of the base maps that never had dirt bikes to begin with. After all, they were only introduced with the final DLC, Aftermath. This is exactly the sort of thing that Battlefield needs to add in the future, in my opinion. Think of the arcade in Overwatch, for example. You know, just like fun, silly games that players can turn to if they want to partake in a less stressful activity, but they still want to play Battlefield. Now, on the complete opposite end of the spectrum, we have Pro Mod, which is basically Counter-Strike, but in Battlefield. So, 1 life each, you choose your loadout at the start, there are limited weapons and gadgets available, and then one team attacks an MCOM and the other tries to defend it. Now, unfortunately, most of my time playing this mod was spent bugged out with a spectator screen overlay when it shouldn't have really been there, which left me unable to control my soldier with mouse input at all. I'm sure the creator will get it fixed soon enough though, which is why I'm still recommending this mod. We have to bear in mind that all of these mods are works in progress. They're more often than not made by a single person, and they do have a lot of bugs to iron out. But I can really see the potential here. You might laugh at this mod when compared to something like Counter-Strike, but remember, Counter-Strike was itself a mod for the original Half-Life. And if nobody would have started going down that road, then we never would have gotten the Counter-Strike game that we all know and love today. I'd love to see some sort of competitive mode complete with a league or division system for the next Battlefield game. Just as the arcade type game modes can help to de-stress you a little bit between games, sometimes you just want a more competitive game mode to test your mettle in. Finally, I would like again to mention the infected game mode. I spoke a bit more on depth on this one in my last video, but like I said there, the atmosphere here is just so cool, and this is definitely another one of those game modes that could fit well into an arcade system. So there you have it guys, my favourite mods available for Venice Unleashed at the time of recording. Post me your favourite mods down below and let me know what servers you've been spending your time in. Hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, have a good Christmas and New Year's, and I'll see you guys next time. Cheers.